Okay, let me do a little news update. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon, February 13th, 2019. There were a few news things that made me, I don't want to do too many news updates. I want to continue posting our teaching videos. I'm in the same spot I was yesterday, by the way. The first thing that that caused me to think of doing an update, I was sitting in my yard maybe 2 hours ago, and for my neighbors who live where I live, which is Turtle Cove, Flower Bluff, right by the Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi Naval Air Station, you'll notice today it sounded like the Blue Angels were flying. I happen to be in the yard. If I'm at the house, I'm outside. I don't sit in the house during the day. But they were loud. Normally you see the training planes, okay? That's what they do in this area. I'll mention something else about that as well. But the trainer planes, you know, they're the red and white, you know, they fly a lot. But you normally do not hear it's not supersonic, but you don't hear those loud ones that rumble everything, only when the Blue Angels do their, air shows. So at first, you saw all the animals running. There was an owl that I have not seen, but I hear him in my yard sometimes in the morning. I seen him today. He got spooked, landed, and he actually attacked another bird. All the animals were freaking out because he was very loud. Then I got a good view of 2 or 3, either the same one that did the circle. I've never seen them before. They are our actual fighter jets, not the trainers. I don't think I've ever seen them before. Now, I'm sure they have to fly them every now and then. What that means for my neighbors, I could have done a video just simply because they were jets that I've never seen, but there are jets. But then I thought I better not do a video. And what does that mean then to us? It means that something is causing us maybe to be on a high alert. That's what that means, okay? That we felt necessary. What is the biggest hotspot going on right now that would be close to us that way? It's Venezuela. Okay, in Venezuela, right now, the current president, Nicolas Maduro, who is socialist, his country has been in collapse for a few years now. People were eating grass to survive, so there was somewhat, if you will, a revolution going on. And just about a week and a half ago, the United States of America, Donald Trump, recognized an opposition opponent to Nicolas Maduro as the new president. I forget his name, Guaidó, but the other guy we're now recognizing. All right. But the United States, of course, Britain, and a few other countries, Western countries, are recognizing the new president of Venezuela. It was a political decision for various reasons countries make. Russia, Iran, possibly China, the other side of the aisle, they are not recognizing, if you will, a new, quote, democratic leader. The history of Latin America, and if you go all the way back to Che Guevara, and the long history of Latin America, the reason many countries, Bolivia and different ones, the reason they turned, if you will, socialist over a period of time, it wasn't that they were all bad people. A lot of countries that have rich resources in the land, this is also would pertain to Africa, a lot of them feel like the leadership of those countries, whether it's oil in Venezuela and other places, that the corporations associated with the Western world, Citgo and things like that, a lot of them felt like this was a a raping of the land, and the average people did not benefit. Therefore, you have the tendency to say, we'll go to socialism. Now, that spread like wildfire, the very famous story of Che Guevara and others, and they had certain reasons that that point of view had some legitimate points to it. In practice, blown out socialism, Marxism, and everything hasn't worked pretty much anywhere. Okay, so we recognize that. Why would Russia and Iran and others not back, if you will, the overthrow of the duly elected president, by the way, Nicolas Maduro? Because, as well, the Western world, at times, has been quick to say, we recognize the new person. Look, that happened in Ukraine, and it happened with the U.S. backing, and the new person that we backed was anti-Russian, but the duly elected Ukrainian president was pro-Russian, right on the border of Russia. And it was in Russia and Putin's interest, in a very logical way, to prefer the democratically elected pro-Russian Ukrainian president. And when the anti-Russian guy rose up, because there was like a revolution, if you will, in Ukraine, the U.S. and John Kerry and others said, oh, we're going to back the new guy. So it wasn't us in those instances backing democracy. It was the U.S. and Western world in those instances backing what they felt was best for them. And people are not stupid. Now, Ilhan Omar, the new freshman Democrat, along with the other one, Cortez out of New York and all. All right. In the world of politics, they are also saying we're the younger generation. We want to do the Green New Deal, things of that nature, and it's a big debate in the country, okay? I'm not for the Green New Deal, but environmentalism, things of that nature do certainly play a role in the Christian worldview. But because of certain statements from that Democrat Ilhan Omar, she's of course made some bad statements. But if you read some of the questioning, and some of her statements were anti-Semitic that she made, was grilled for that. But she was questioning, I read the news, Elliot Abrams, Jewish man, been in government politics for many, many years. I'm familiar with him. I didn't realize Donald Trump appointed him as like the envoy to Venezuela. But if you read the questioning, this is important that you always look at both sides of issues. Some of the history that she brought up in the questioning of Elliot Abrams, Donald Trump, or the U.S.'s envoy to Venezuela, was very insightful and very important. Then she asked a controversial question: would the U.S. ever support genocide if it was in their best interest? And Elliot Abrams said, I will not answer that. But then if you read the questioning, some of the history that she gave, a little bit that I just touched on, was insightful and important. Okay? So you have legitimate people on a lot of different sides of the aisle. Now, being this is just a news update, though I did a little bit of history just now, there was a breaking local news story. I could not read the whole thing because it was from the Kohler Times, maybe broke now 30 minutes ago. And it said the DA's office, last week, the DA's office, Mark Gonzalez, it was revealed, asked for a outside, if you will, criminal investigation of his own office. There's a lot going on in this county. And the reason he asked for it, according to the media reports, was there was like $100,000 in drugs forfeiture money that was never deposited. Now, I think they said they found the checks there at the DA's office in somebody's desk. I'm not sure now if this is criminal or if this is incompetence. But Mark Gonzalez requested the Texas Attorney General to investigate his own office over that issue. And then 30 minutes ago, it broke on the Polar Times. I couldn't read it because you could only read 3 articles free, and I'm not going to ever subscribe. But it said the DA's office, and part of the reason this investigation was launched was they're not paying their debts. The DA's office, Mark Gonzalez, they're not paying their bills. That came out. Now, one of my prophecies has already come true about local issues. As I looked at the development of the bridge, we have a whole nother thing going on in Corpus Christi and Oasis County. I've spoken out against it. I've spoken out about the way the port commissioners of the Port of Corpus Christi did certain things that I felt were, really wrong and bad. But I also prophesied and said, we're doing a major reconstruction of our downtown area, having to do with the dredging of the Port of Corpus Christi, basically manually, man-made, making the port bigger. Now, we did that with the Packery Channel, which is a small little port channel. Hurricane Harvey caused a lot of damage. Whenever you manually dredge something like that, there are man-made ports and there are God-made ports. The Hudson is a wonderful port, right where I grew up. This port is also a natural port. When man puts his hands to the port, meaning you start dredging that, not only is there environmental issues, I was against what they're doing downtown with the port and the Harbor Bridge. But something I've not yet heard anybody bring up, and I don't know why. Our region, of course, faced Hurricane Harvey. When you dredge a port, you're basically making a much greater channel for water to come in. And that port is in an area where you don't want more water coming in during a hurricane. That in itself, besides all the other issues, would be a reason why doing this project is very foolish. Because you're going to make a man-made waterway, increasing it, which is going to cost a lot of money for maintenance over many years. And you're also putting more of a risk of a tidal surge in downtown Corpus Christi. You would think people would be aware of that, and engineers and all this, and I'm sure they are. But in combination of the dredging of the port, making it deeper, so tankers, ships carrying oil, can actually load and unload and come in with heavier loads, picking up the oil, bringing it out. And it's a financial benefit to certain people, and it doesn't benefit everybody, by the way. But it's a huge disruption. But at the same time, they're in the process of tearing down the beautiful, beautiful Harbor Bridge. And sometimes you leave things alone. If it's a Southern dictum was, if it's not broke, don't fix it. When I first came to Texas and I worked on a construction crew, and I got first hired on as a painter, and within like a week he made me the painting contract, the foreman for painting, because I hustled, okay? I worked hard. But I had compliments from my former construction job before I worked for the fire department. And I remember one of our foreman, Randy Maltby, said, "John, a lot of Yankees," and I was a Yankee. He says, "they have all these other ideas, but you know how to get stuff done, and you do it right." And to us, John, that's a Texas Southern mentality. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And what's happening now, I spoke against the disruption that not only the dredging is going to cause, but the project of making a new bridge. And the purpose of the new bridge is when these bigger tanker ships come in with oil, picking up oil, the purpose is that they can fit under the bridge. Now, when I walk North Beach, which I do every so often, it's a very beautiful place. And I realized that the disruption that it's going to cause, not only to downtown, but to North Beach, and people that, there were some beautiful cottages, like 4 cottages for sale at a very cheap price. And just one time when I was doing the walk, I called the realtor, and I thought, and he didn't say, but I realized why some people are selling things dirt cheap. North Beach is going to be disrupted for years to come, okay? Because of all this. The bridge that takes you to North Beach is one of the bridges that they're going to eventually tear down. But this is very vital that they get all this done, and the projected date was 2020, meaning you're causing such a huge disruption to even future investment. Because if you have someone in their 60s or 50s that says, man, I'd like to invest and build something out there, and then you're putting on the table, you might never live to see your investment come to fruition because it's going to be a disruption. And I said a year ago, they're projecting the new bridge is going to be built. It's a huge job. They've detoured downtown Corpus Christi in a very dangerous way. Everybody and anybody locally that's for the port, against the port, would testify the same thing. I went to the Corpus Christi Cathedral last week, beautiful downtown church that I go to. And when I left, and I know downtown, there's a normal route when I leave the cathedral, beautiful area, you see me video there. And then there was like a road you go down, and you normally catch the main road, the main highway. Highway 37 is, now that's all blocked. Look, and it took me, when I'm talking race issues today, it took me into, quote, Blacktown. Now, I didn't mind where this detour took me, but if you were a tourist for the first time visiting this city, and you realized the discombobulation of downtown, and you were heading to the highway, and I had to drive 6 or 10 blocks through a very crime-ridden area, I was comfortable with it. These are people I've walked and talked, but I thought, if somebody's looking to invest, they look at the beautiful area of downtown, and then they realize that one experience would be, they probably would choose no. All of this is attributed to the disruption of these whole projects. Now, another news story today that came out was the new company building the bridge said the county judge, her name Barbara Canales, she asked, you think it's going to be done in the projected date of next year? They said no. Now the new projected date is 2021. I predicted that this is going to be a very, very long project, and you're going to have some problems with it. There was already some problems with one of the companies that's building it and so forth, people not getting paid. And I would just say this, I foresaw that coming. I foresaw that you could attribute it to maybe leadership, people making the decisions. If I remember correctly, the former mayor, a Hispanic lady, Nelda Martinez, I wasn't a big fan of Nelda. I respected and honored her because when she was young, she got pregnant, and it was an unwanted pregnancy. And she refused, because of her faith, to abort that child. And that child she gave up for adoption to another family. And she came openly and talked about that a few years ago and spoke to the child living a wonderful life. And that was a good thing that our former mayor did. But if I remember correctly, she was against all that project because maybe she had some foresight. Okay? So those are just a few things I would just give you that came to my mind. The case I spoke about earlier of the killing of the boy Lister, I believe that officer's name was Hassan. And there are a few prominent women in politics for many years. And so I believe he's related to Nanette Hassan. Now, some of these women, I confuse their names. Barbara Canales Peggy Benyalis. I spoke of her husband much, Judge Benyalis. But I believe the officer that I spoke about earlier who killed the boy Lister, I believe his name was Hassett, and he was related to Nanette Hassett. These were all political women, and I believe Nanette Hassett is married to Terry Shamsey, a prominent Democrat, good lawyer, who happened to be defending the doctor, the sex doctor case. He's the one that's, so, for the average viewer, obviously, all you got to do is go to our local media and review those things, and you'll see those things. I heard on a local, I'll end this, but on a local talk show, Bob Jones at a 1440 AM radio, he had one of the women leaders of our community, a commissioner, forget her name. She's highly critical of Mark Gonzalez, the DA, because of things that came up the last few weeks. She says she don't believe him, that he denied that he meant F the police when he had FTP hashtag. Other things came up. We're not trending well at all here, okay? We're trending downward here. For my Christian friends, I didn't want to teach too much because this is just an update. You see, John, we're supposed to be a blessing to the city, and the city's blessed by the blessing of the upright and all. I understand all that. Remember something important. The most holy land at the time of the apostles and Jesus obviously was what? Jerusalem. Read the writings of John, particularly in the book of Revelation, as well as in the gospel. He referred to the natural city, which was supposedly such a holy place. He referred to it as the synagogue of Satan, because in its rejection, representing the rejection of Christ as Messiah, that title was given to him, as well as the other theological understanding that we are the New Jerusalem and all. And I throw that in to just say this. I think a lot of Christians theologically have made a mistake by identifying any natural city with those promises that are made to God blessing the city of God, or to the people of God. St. Augustine's book, The City of God. A philosopher and atheist, I think he wrote one called The City of Man. So what that means is, our vision and goal and purpose, there were so many people that had all these prophecies over the years about the city of Corpus Christi. Look, I recognize the name's got a purpose, and it truly did come from the Catholic Church, by the way, from my Protestant friends. But the city that's blessed in the New Testament is the community of God, the people of God, that spiritual city. I, John, saw the New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. The same John who referred to the natural city as wicked, corrupt, and adulterous. Sodom and Egypt he called natural Jerusalem. So when you have a city, wherever it is, and it bears the wonderful name Corpus Christi, Body of Christ, look, if I ever relocate to New York and to right on that Hudson, I'm not going to change the name of all of our sites, because Corpus Christi Outreach Ministries, CC Outreach 87, we started in 1987. That's Body of Christ Outreach. My tattoo, it represents Corpus Christi Outreach Ministries. That's what the letters are. I did it for my friends who wanted, Crow has it, he got it. But what we represent is the body, the people of God, the church. And those blessings promised to the city, it's not a blessing to, if you will, any dirt. That has to do, if I did a whole thing, it has to do with the issues and some of the political things I hit on in this video itself. It has to do with the way we view what is the purpose, okay? So that was just a quick wrap up. Those are a couple of hot items of news stories that would kind of cause you to, some of the dysfunction going on is having real long-term negative effects on both the economy here, the environment here, and in the end, I think it's going to do more harm than good, just as a pure analysis. There are certain people whether they're people with port industries or other. There are certain people that obviously have financial interests. And counties benefit as well. We get it. Cities benefit if it is the overall thing. Okay? For the most part, the debate economically, I talked about Latin America, the history of the rise of socialism. But that's a legitimate debate in the sense, why did I mention Africa? See, for many years, you had the colonization and all. Eventually, when presidents rose up on the continent of Africa, because each state is its own state, and Africa is a continent. But some of those leaders, even if they engaged in, if you will, capitalism, the resources from their African states wasn't benefiting the people, even till this day. But these are mineral-rich areas, things where things come out. So the reality is, I understand the issue, the arguments between capitalism and different forms of government, but there are many, many, many capitalist societies that some at the top have benefited. And you say overall, though, the rich, John, they provide, I get it, okay? I understand the arguments on both sides. But it is very true that there's some rich countries and even democratically elected leaders of those countries at times have benefited them. That's the sad history of some of the whole socialism concept. But the question about it is legitimate. The question about whether you would cause a possible, in my view, I think the Harbor Bridge project and the dredging of the port, because of all these types of concerns, might be a never-ending thing. It might get in litigation from environmentalists. Look, the beautiful naval base that's been here ever since I came to Texas in 1980, there's a possibility that they're going to shut this base down. And it has to do with the local decision, not of the commissioners, but the school board. The school board wants to build a new high school. The old one, Mary Carroll, which is off of Weber Street. I used to drive past a lot on the work to Kingsville. They want to build a new one. The city has land. The school district can do it. But the Navy base itself voiced strong opposition. Why? Because it's in the field of where they practice their training. Of course, they leave the base here, right where I live, but they fly. It's a big circular training thing. You have a touch-and-go base here in the bluff, where they land and hit and go up. So the Navy base basically said, we have strong opposition because that high school is going to be right in that range where they consider it's a big mark against having a base if you can't. Now maybe the school district leadership, they still butted heads with the objection of the Navy. The school district leadership said, we'll rethink about it. But then they said, well, we'll build the building on this side and the parking lot there. Look, anybody that knows anything, you're not going to want to fly a plane anywhere within, a mile and a half of the high school or something of that nature. It doesn't make a difference if you change where the parking lot and the building. But it seems like the school district is going ahead with it. And what that shows you is either people that are informed, maybe they're not seeing the bigger picture. The Navy base, it's not purely just an industry, okay? It's federal money, okay? That's what we get here. It benefits my area called Florida Bluff. So if it's a matter of just building a school in a different location, so it's these decisions that would cause people that are like educated to say, oh, no matter how beautiful your city is aesthetically, you're kind of, you're somewhat in a state of collapse. The way these things are being handled, the way these things are being done. All right, so I'll end it with that and walk back to the car. I wasn't going to do another update. I'm wanting to focus on what you've been seeing me do. Most of the teaching videos. Started a new site called IGTV, which is Instagram TV. That's very functional. You only put under 10-minute videos on that one. But I have many videos, many are under 10. I want to encourage people. I was thinking, if I ever make a trip, well, I'm going to make a trip back to New York City, New Jersey, maybe soon. But if I ever relocated, I would leave everything on all the websites the same. But if it's something like I'm going to be up there, initially you're not going to see me all the posts you see. I'm going to be out a lot. And hopefully if that ever happened, all my videos would be by New York City off the Hudson River. I'll do them all there. And I was thinking of that the other day. I said, oh, that'd be great. Every day you just see that region. So I don't ask for help, support, and I'm not going to do it now. But I would just ask people, if you're benefiting from any of the teaching, any of the education, take them, download the videos, save everything. The idea is to get the word out. And if I'm in transition or I make a trip like that, you all send what you're benefiting from, share it with your friends. Our goal is to build the spiritual city of God, all right? I pray a blessing on everybody. It was windy. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure how long I spoke.